This is a viewer-requested prop. Hello, and welcome to my channel and my first video of the year. My name's Ryan, or RJR Productions, and today I'm going to be showing you how I made my Phase 2 Captain Rex helmet with a movable rangefinder. Let's get right into it. The first thing I did for this project is start out with a template for the faceplate. And believe it or not, it's actually the base same template as my Phase 2 video from last year, my very first video. I just changed the shape of the visor, so the outline is similar. So basically what I did is I combined the Phase 2 and Phase 1 visor until I got what it looked right, and then I just traced that out onto some cardboard, flipped it over so I had a mirror image, and then I cut out the visor shape, curled it, and then I put a little ring of cardboard on one side. Now what that did is just elevate it a little bit off of the helmet, so when I eventually glued it on, it wouldn't be just plain flat. Then I cut a 26-inch by 1-inch strip, and this is the base for the dome around the top. So what I ended up doing is just gluing it together at the back, and then I added a support beam in the middle and across the sides. Now I've been doing this for the past couple of helmets, I think 3 or 4, and I really like the result that this gives, because while you're working on your dome, it won't warp or shape out of place, and this is really good because you can always make sure that it's in that circular shape. So now once I had the visor all ready, I ended up gluing it onto the helmet, and that was very straightforward. I just made sure to line up the sides with the sides of the dome, and that really helps with that crossbar on there because that pretty much lines up the sides. And then I started doing the top. So the top is just one strip of cardboard along the top. I kind of rounded the edges or corners a little bit, and then I did 2 beams across the sides, and that's basically just another strip of cardboard about the same width as the one that goes across the front to back, except this one's going side to side, and there's a split in the middle so you can glue up the edges flush with that main centerpiece. Once I had both of those sides in, I started to work on the fin on the top. So this fin is different from the Phase 1 fins, because the Phase 1 fins have kind of a little arc and lift at the back to where they get like 2 or 3 inches tall, and this one remains about between 1/4 and 1/2 inch all the way along the top. So I just used 2 or 3 strips of cardboard that I just stacked up along the top, and then on the edges I just put another strip, so 2 strips on either side, and then on the outside edge I just made sure to cover that with some thin cardboard. Now the way I got that thin cardboard is I just took a regular piece of regular corrugated cardboard, and I just peeled off the top layer, making sure to not rip it because then that would ruin the purpose. And then once I had that whole sheet, I just ended up cutting it up and then put it along the edge so I wouldn't have to fill that with Bondo or spackle later on. Once I was really happy with the fin, I ended up starting to work on these side panels. So the side panels are just about 2.5 inches wide, and they attach right on the side, and then they go all the way down. So I just made sure to make them extra long because then I could just trim them later on, and I glued them on both sides. I added a little lip or another ring of cardboard underneath it just to make it more raised off the helmet, because there is a considerable gap between the edge of this piece and then the inside of the helmet. Then once I had both of those pieces on, I started working on an edge on the inside where those little cheek compartments are, and this is pretty straightforward, similar to my regular Phase 1 and ARC Trooper Havoc helmet. I basically just made these regular scoops, and they have like the 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch wall size, and then that wraps all the way around the wall, and then I just glue a piece behind that. Now I started working on the vent grill at the very front, kind of the mouth or frown, and I just glued some pieces of cardboard on that kind of fleshed it out and angled it sort of downwards. And if you look at it from a side profile, the face kind of goes down, and then it's a shallower angle that comes out once you get past the teeth. So then I cut out the teeth after I had that little lower part on, and I made that part extra long too because I could just trim it. Now there's 6 gaps in total, 3 on each side and then 1 in the middle, and the middle parts that aren't cut out will end up being gray, and then I'll end up gluing some mesh in eventually behind that so you can still breathe through it when the helmet's on. I think that's pretty cool. And then I cut out this little channel right at the base of the chin. And then I just cut some panels of cardboard similar to the side ear pieces. But these ones had some little grooves cut out of one side so that when you glued it together, you could kind of go from maybe 2 inches wide to 1.5 inches wide. And that just really tapers the whole end and makes it very cool. And I really like this method. I haven't used it on any of my other Clone Trooper helmets. I think I'm going to use it on many to come, unless if I find a better way to do it. I glued in a piece that goes in between both. It's just a filler piece similar to my Phase 2 from last year. It's just kind of a house shape that goes in between 2 curves on the outside. Shout out to all you who get that reference there. Now I took some reference pieces and I just looked at my reference pictures, right? And the tube goes all the way around to the back. So I just made sure to, well, wrap the tube all the way around to the back. So I just took some cardboard and I just fleshed it out, kind of how I do with all of my other helmets. I just take a piece of cardboard and I just curl it around from the base of the cheek all the way around to the inside, and I make sure to put lots of glue so it won't move anywhere. Then I just repeated all those steps on the opposite side. Now a little bit past where those front cheek panels are, I just added another strip that's fairly short. It's about 2 inches wide, and it just wraps from the bottom of that earpiece all the way around. And I was able to trim those since I know pretty much how high they need to be. So now, once I had both of those pieces on, I was ready to work on the back of the helmet. Now the back of the helmet is pretty similar to the front. How if you look at it from a side profile, you can see that the panels on the back kind of line up with the ones on the front, and it just kind of has an even slope, kind of broken up by that one piece in the middle. So now I started working on the dome instead, because that's another big piece that I need to finish. And this is the same as my past 2 helmets. I really like this method. I think I came up with this one. I don't know if anyone else has been doing this on YouTube, but basically you take a piece of cardboard similar to my other helmets past the past 2, and then you cut little divots out of it, kind of similar to those front 2 tube panel pieces. And then you bend it together and you glue it over the helmet, and then you curve all those edges in. And what this allows you to do is get a curve in both directions, so it's not just curved from top to bottom, but it's curved from top to bottom and side to side, if that makes sense. Then once I had those pieces glued on, I filled in the other 2 gaps on either side of them with just smaller pieces of cardboard. Now this doesn't need the same technique. And then once I did that with 1/4, I did that with the other 4, and then now I started fleshing out the back. So I just took some pieces of cardboard and wrapped them from the back of the ear plates all the way around to the other side. And then I did this one center piece. So this center piece is almost a rectangle, but it slightly tapers in towards the bottom. And then I just made some more side scoops, just like the front of the helmet. And then I just added some more panels behind that. Now you might want to make this helmet a little bit bigger than you think you will, because on the inside, these scoops at the front, the cheek panels, and the 2 at the back, kind of at the base of the skull, they make the inside diameter of the helmet fairly small. So this helmet, even though it's pretty large, it still barely fits me putting it on with those 2 panels there. And then once I had all that back done, I just continued to wrap around the back piece all the way around, and I just used the same technique from the front half. So I just took some strips of cardboard, attached them to the sides, curled them around, and then I did that on both sides, and then there's one piece in the middle of the back. So this one was fairly straightforward, and on the inside I made sure to use lots of glue so it won't fall apart. And you can be fairly lenient on yourself here. It doesn't need to be perfect since you'll be filling it with either spackle or Bondo or whatever you like to use. And then I cut out that one vent or channel that's gray in the back strip, and this was fairly straightforward. I just made sure to use that gap from the top of the dome or the bottom of the dome, and then that one strip I used at the very beginning, remember the 26-inch strip? I just cut that out with grounded edges towards the fronts of the ears, and then I just filled that in with another plate. Then I just added this one tiny circular detail at the back, and then once I had that done, I started to Bondo. Now, I'd never used this product before. I got it recommended, and I saw it from a bunch of other YouTubers, and I tried it out. So now looking back at it in retrospect, I probably could have used some popsicle sticks or something just to smooth it out. You wouldn't really want to use a putty knife because this stuff dries within 5 minutes, so it's pretty quick. And I used this for the base 2 layers. I did about 3, maybe 4 coats of the Bondo on this. and I just really wasn't liking it. I didn't like the concept of having to mix the part A and part B together to make a hardener, and then you just cover it over all the gaps. And applying it with your finger really doesn't work that well. So I would recommend using either the one tube kind, the one where it just dries with air and it's not a chemical reaction that cures it, or just spackle, and that's what I ended up using because I was so frustrated with this stuff. I might revisit it with a different type, like the one that's air dry, maybe in my next video. But once I had it all applied, I went and sanded all of the high spots down, and once you do this, you could really see all the low spots. So after I had that done, I mixed up another batch of Bondo, and I applied it over all that. And I really don't like the concept of it coming out of a tube. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but for me, it made it kind of difficult to do that. I don't know. And then I started working on the details that go inside of the chin, like the two tubes, and then at the front of that house shape. So the front one is kind of a trapezoid, and then it has a little rectangle on top of it. And after I had those two pieces glued together, I just made sure to make sure that it fits inside of that center detail, and then I just wrapped all of the edges with some more cardboard. And then I did the two circles at the very edges of the tubes, and now these were supposed to take up as much space as you can, so it fills up the whole thing. And then I just made sure to layer some layers on that, so it would be that main circle with the edges covered in cardboard, then a thin piece of cardboard over that that's slightly smaller in circumference, and then another one that's even slightly smaller, and this one has a hole in it, so I can glue some mesh back there. And now I started working on the rangefinder. So for the rangefinder, I cut out this one circle, and then I attached a fairly long piece to it. I kind of just gauged the size. I just made sure that it was like maybe an inch or two above the top of the helmet. And then I noticed that the edges need to be covered up with some more cardboard, so I just wrapped it in another piece of cardboard. This is the thin stuff. And then once I was happy with the length of that, I started working on the little box at the top. So the box at the top on this one, I decided to make it a little bit different. It's basically the same concept as my ARC Trooper Havoc rangefinder. So if you haven't seen that, probably go watch that video before coming here. So probably pause this video, go over there, and then come back once you've seen that rangefinder. This one, I just added a little piece at the very bottom of it. And what that allowed me to do was look through it, so when you bend it down, you can see through the scope. I also wanted to make this one rotatable, so I added a little nut on one end, and then there was actually a screw attached on the inside of the helmet. So if you don't really understand this, I'll cut to a video of me right now. So you may be wondering how this rangefinder is attached and how it can ultimately go up and down. So I'll show you that from the inside just to get a better look. So on the inside, as you can see, there's a little nut here. And this one I just found in the garage. It has a little toothed edge on one side that's not attached to the nut. So basically when it spins, it still has grip on the inside. And this screw goes all the way through and into the other side of the rangefinder. And that just helps it pivot. Now, one flaw with this is that it can actually just bend backwards, but it's pretty tight, so you can just make sure to leave it in the up position. One thing I also made sure to do with that main shaft of the rangefinder is to add a barbecue skewer in it. On my last project, the ARC Trooper Havoc one, the Phase 2 option with the rangefinder, I used a piece of wire, but I didn't have any wire this time, and I have a bunch of barbecue skewers, so I just put a barbecue skewer on there. The box at the top is also the same as ARC Trooper Havoc. Now I have the helmet all completed. All I need to do is paint it after this. So I have the helmet all primed, it's all ready for paint. Then I have the rangefinder all primed, it's also ready for paint. Then I have these little details that go under here. So this one goes in the middle, these two obviously on the sides. So those are all completed. This little detail just goes on this rangefinder piece right here. It's like a little scope that you can look through. Now I have all the parts that are going to remain gray, such as the teeth and this back vent, or gray stripe. Now that I have all that done, I'm going to go outside and paint the whole thing a nice white color. Now that's going to be some gloss white, as I showed in the previous shot. So now I'll cut to the time lapse. The painting stage is very simple. Just make sure to avoid drips and then you should be good. Also start from the bottom of the helmet, because most of the time that won't be seen. And if you paint the bottom and then you stick it down, most of the time it'll stick, but just a little bit, and most of the time you won't see the bottom. So I just do that first and then cover the whole thing after that. And then came the dreaded process of masking everything white that I want to stay and then leaving it blue. Now the reason why I'm painting it white first is because I really want to chip away some of the blue paint so you can see the white underneath. I just looked at a really good reference image of Captain Rex from the very front, and I just made sure to mask off those two J guys at the front and the little triangles right next to them, and then I made sure to leave a little margin around the whole eye piece, and then once I had that done, I taped off the whole back. After about an hour and 30 minutes, an hour and 45 minutes, I finally finished this masking job. So we've got the two J guys in the top, and then we have just this little masking job out there, and then everything else is just masked off, including down here. Now the reason why I didn't paint the blue first, and I could have saved a lot of masking, is because once I paint the blue on top of the white, I want to take my X-Acto knife and just scratch at the edges just a little bit, just to chip the paint a little bit. And I think that'll make a much better effect than having no paint chipping at all. So, the next step for this project is to paint all of these deep sea blue. The blue paint that I use, and all the paint I use, is Rust-Oleum brand, if you wanted to know. And this is what the paint was looking like after I chipped it a little bit with my scalpel, and I think that looks really cool. So now came to the process of doing those little tannish blue stripes on the edges and right at the brow line. So with these, I laid down a base layer of like a yellowy tan and a mix with a brown, and that just went about 1/2 inch wide from the middle of the front of the visor all the way down and wrapped around underneath to the chin piece. And then once I had that done, I just made sure to let it dry, and I also did a strip of brown at the very top, going from the front of each gray piece on either side, and that went about 1/2 inch tall as well. And then after that dried, I just took some blue that I mixed up. It was some lighter cyan blue and then a darker grayish blue that I mixed together, and that gave me a nice color that I really liked. And this one I just applied very thinly, less than 1/4 inch, in between the brown and the middle. And I did that on the top as well. And now the next step I did was just take some white and put it down the very middle. For the little air breathers that come out of the side of these vents, what I'm actually going to use is just some Legos. So these are like fake Legos or whatever, but it's a wheel and then it's a little cylinder piece that I just put together. So I'm going to glue these up and then paint them a grayish dark black color, and then I'll glue them on. It'll basically be the same color as the rangefinder. So I think that's a cool thing, how I just have these laying around, and most people probably have Legos, so you can probably just make these yourself too. So I'm going to go ahead and paint them up and then glue them on the helmet. Now before I started the weathering stage, I made sure to do those tally marks on each side. So there's a total of 30 tallies on each side, and they're groups of 5, and then there's 6 of them on each side. So after I had that done, I mixed up some black paint with some water, and what that did is it just allowed me to weather over the whole helmet. So I made sure to put a decent amount of black paint in the water, and what you do is you wipe this around the whole helmet, and then you just dab it off with a paper towel, and what that does is it leaves black in the darker areas and the shallower spots, and that makes it so the grooves are darker and then the high spots are lighter. And what I really like about this is that it makes it look aged. I've also been getting a lot of questions in the comments on if I can see through the visors. So this is what it looks like in a lower light condition, and as you can see, even though there's some vertical lines from the Sharpie, you can still see through. And that's how I made my Phase 2 Captain Rex helmet. Now I decided to make this because A, I've been getting a lot of suggestions for it, and B, the Clone Wars is coming out in about a month, so I'm really excited for that. And in celebration for that, depending on how much support I get from this video, in my next video I might either make Captain Rex's guns, maybe his pauldron, or if you guys want me to, I can make a Commander Cody helmet or a Commander Wolf helmet. I've also been getting suggestions for that. So in the comments of this video, I want you guys just to tell me what Clone Wars themed prop you'd want me to make, or helmet, or costume. I probably won't be able to get a costume done within time for that, but whatever. It's whatever you guys want. So, thanks for watching. This has been RJR Productions, and I'll see you all in the next one.